we got a lot of work done today. We got 2-minute, half line, situational, short yardage coming out, going in, and then we wanted to get 16 plays with our first group today, so we hit that mark. So a lot of the things that we were looking for, we were able to achieve today. Going into next week, obviously, is a lighter week. We'll have one real, true, full practice before we have our really game day walkthrough on Friday, and then spring game on Saturday. So today was an important day for us. We would have loved to have gotten outside, but it is what it is. We got a lot of good work done inside. We got some really good special teams work done this spring. Very competitive. We were able to really grade out our players individually moving forward, so we know what our units are going to look like, other than maybe the guys that are going to be catching the football. We'll hone in on that a little bit more later, but some really good things happened in terms of special teams and the drill work, and today we got some more good work on kickoff return and our front line guys. So good work. So with that, we'll open up the questions.
Brian, what did you maybe have you learned through 12 practices about your team that maybe you weren't sure about going into spring?
I think more than anything else, we still haven't, it's too early to really know an identity per se. I think what's happening is guys are starting to emerge in some particular positions and some roles. I think that's more than anything else, that's starting to occur. Some guys that didn't have major roles last year now are starting to become more comfortable with new positions and new roles. I think that's probably the story of the spring, more so than an identity of the football team. They work hard. There's a culture that's in the program that exists that they all understand, so that's already here. I think it's really more about the individuals accepting roles and stepping up to those new roles more than anything else.
Coach, when you talk about new roles with Alex Bars especially, he talked yesterday about the game looking different from tackle than from guard. How has he adjusted to that, and how is that look?
Well, it's significant, especially, he's going against, Isaac Rochelle. He's going against some guys that, are big and physical and fast, and, he's one-on-one a lot more. So inside, you're in so many more combination scenarios where you have some help. You're on an island a lot more out there. So the perspective that he has, and he's probably articulating to you, is that he doesn't get as much help being inside. And I think he's starting to sense and feel how much of that falls on his shoulders, and getting adjusted to that and being technically sound and everything that he has to do on a play-to-play basis is a lot for a young player. And I think, he's got the physical ability to do it. Now it's just technique and assignments and being consistent on a play-to-play basis.
How did 2 starts last year help him this year?
Well, it helped him confidence-wise. He's got confidence in his ability to go out there and compete against, anybody. Now it's, all right, handling that position, which is a different look for him, as he's already talked about. And I think that's probably the biggest learning curve for him.
Line as a whole, obviously, you lose Nick and Ronnie. How do you think that group as a whole is coming together?
Well, I think they're doing well. The left side, obviously, is the strength of it, with obviously McGlinchey and Nelson. They work very well together. They're top line offensive linemen in the country, as good as there are, and so that's the strength of the unit. Sam continues to obviously do very good things for us in terms of his consistency. And then, we're in a rotation and development on the right side with 2 very good young players. So I think it has the makings of being a very, very good offensive line. They do some really good things as a unit in terms of pass protection. Their communication is getting better every day. So I think it's work in progress, but one that is pretty exciting because we've got some talented players.
You looking forward to the weather perhaps cooperating for a week from now to the actual Blue Gold game?
It couldn't get any worse. So I think we're pretty excited that the outlook looks to be favorable, and it'll be nice to get outside.
Ultimately, what do you want to do with Alizé? Are you working him at receiver to make him a better tight end, or do you want him to be a hybrid player?
It's a good question. It really is. I think we're trying to find where he can best impact our football team against Texas. So is it a hybrid player? Is it a W receiver? Is it a tight end? I think it's apparent by what you saw today. He's a guy that can go down the field vertically. He can catch the football. He's got to be a little bit better and more consistent with his hands. There's no question about it. But he's a big target. He's physical and athletic, and he's a guy that we've got to try to find a role for him. He can't be in a rotation as the third tight end on the field. That's pretty clear. So I think really right now just finding a place where we can get him in and get him on the field because he's a talented player.
I didn't see Cornelius out there at least at the beginning. Did he pick up?
Yeah, he
something?
strained he fell on his shoulder yesterday, and we just wanted to be careful. He was out there fully dressed. We just didn't want to put him in a contact situation today. He did all of his individual drills, but we wanted to make sure he was going to be good for next week. Not the shoulder that he hurt last year, but he fell on it Friday. It's not even a first degree, but he was really sore, so we kept him out of contact today.
And then do you have an update on Corey Robinson? Did he ever?
No, he goes Tuesday. Tuesday, yeah. Well, we're excited about it. You know, you come to Notre Dame to play, you know, in those primetime games. So we're excited about the national audience that we'll have, a great slot for a national game, and our guys are excited anytime that they get that kind of, you know, platform and audience for Notre Dame football, so we're excited about it.
Do you get the sense that there's kind of a boost of energy with your guys, knowing that the blue and gold game is kind of getting a little bit closer and that there's an actual tangible, you know, thing?
Oh, sure. I mean, after a while, you know, you're going into practice number 12 and 13 is on the horizon, and you know, these guys are certainly looking forward to next week and wrapping up spring ball, and it's been physical. We've gone right up to the maximum contact days from an NCAA standpoint, and it's been a physical spring practice for us, and I know our guys have benefited from it, but I know they're looking forward to next week and the game, certainly.
What do you get out of the blue gold game? What's the benefit of the game as a whole? Is it more so the atmosphere and playing in front of a crowd than anything else for the guys?
What I like to get out of it more than anything else is to create a full game-like atmosphere from the pregame to being in the locker room. So for those guys that are now, as I mentioned to Eric, that we're elevating into those first-time roles of maybe being a starter, that they really get a taste of now you're that guy, you know. You were in that backup role before, but now let's go through this pregame and we're counting on you. So this game, you know, kind of really is that dress rehearsal for them to be in that role as the starter and go out there and be focused and be locked in. You're not a backup. You're not in a situation where you're going to be standing on the sideline. You're actually going to be competing. So I like that opportunity for them. And then I like the opportunity for them to go compete. We're really going to try to break this thing up into two teams. We don't want it to be offense versus defense. So we're going to be a little short in certain areas where we may have to have some guys play on both sides at times, but we're working hard to make this a blue versus gold opportunity.
Brian, was today fairly difficult for Niles Morgan? Was this a step up for him as he sort of fits into those guys? Next Saturday will be a starter really for the first time.
Yes and no. I think he's, there's not been a lot of talk about Niles Morgan, which is kind of interesting. Here's a guy that, didn't play much last year and stepped into the middle linebacker role. And, there's always a lot of talk about Coach Van Gorder's system, and it's so complicated, and, you got to communicate. And no one's really talked about Niles, and it's because Niles has been that good this spring. He's gotten our defense lined up effortlessly. There's been great communication, and he's played extremely well at that position. And I think a lot of it has to do with how hard he works at the game. It's really, really important to him. Certainly his first 2 years here have helped him immensely in terms of learning the defense. But I think my point being is that we haven't talked a lot about him is because he has been really good this spring in running our defense from that position.
Sort of transition James from Sam to Will in your sub packages. How long has that sort of been on the table? And
Pete, I wouldn't read too much into, other than the Mike linebacker position, those other guys right now, because we're so short-handed. We're trying to make some things work. What we want is to be able to play some nickel, and to do that and to function. We don't want to put too much on Asmar, Bilal. And so some of it is a function of trying to get some guys in position and we don't blow them up with too much information. We can do that with James and lay a lot more on James than some of the other guys.
Last year you had such a veteran team, and in August you even mentioned you could have selected 10 captains if
Yep.
you wanted to. Who is emerging in the leadership capacities this spring, and do you see it having as large a volume of leaders as you did last year?
I don't know that we've really attacked that point of this group yet in terms of focusing on, who the leaders are. We're still developing so many other pieces of this football team, but there are some guys that have naturally stepped in front. Mike McGlinchey offensively, Torrey Hunter, the quarterbacks lead naturally, just by virtue of who they are. To just name a few, Isaac Rochelle, has done a great job. James Onawalu. Those guys lead just by their character and who they are on a day-to-day basis. When we get to that segment, we'll focus a little bit more on them in particular and putting them out front, but we're not at that point where we really need to focus on developing those guys. I think they'll come out naturally.
Right, what do you need to see from your safety position over the summer? What improvement do you want to see, or what's kind of the goal there?
We're going to have a lot of young guys that'll be competing in there. So, getting them into some of the OTAs in June, some film study, picking up the defense will be important for us. I think just the continued progression that we're on, I think, Max has done some good things in the past week or two that we're really pleased with. Hope that trend continues. We all know what Studstill has done. Sebastian's done some really good things for us the past couple of weeks, and Tranquil has been really, really good. So, we've had some good things happen there, and we'll just continue, hopefully, to grow in that position. And it's a huge position for us, as you know. The safety position at every, BCS football team is crucial in terms of what's going on offensively. So. We'll have some young guys back there that we'll get in here in June that, we'll spend some time with and look to develop them to get them ready for August as well.
Brian, would the plan be to have Malik and Deshaun go on separate teams?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and we'll move Brandon and the other quarterbacks, back and forth. But it'll be those two working against each other.
How much will that help in terms of just seeing those guys kind of leading their own respective team?
I think it'll help immensely, absolutely. And we'll make them live for a little bit. I don't think it'll be the whole game, but, they'll have blue jerseys. They've got to be able to run a little bit. So we'll let them compete a little bit, probably maybe just the first half. I haven't made a definitive decision on that yet, but they clearly need to be involved in the game. They run, that's what they do. That's the identity of our offense, is the quarterback's going to be a running threat as well. So got to let them run a little bit too.
Following up on Tim O'Malley's question, Tranquil, in one sequence, I think he popped Smythe, he covered Corey Holmes, and he rushed the passer on the next play. Can you just talk about his skill set and what kind of player you think he can be?
I think the area of development is playing off the hash. He's a great box safety. He's great close to the line of scrimmage. He's a very good tackler. I think the areas of development is in our speed package, where working line games, working obviously his pass rush technique, and he's really obviously he's a very focused and studious kid. He wants to be as good as he can be. So he spent extra time on that in the last week to get better at the speed package, and I already saw a difference from last week to this week in just his pass rush. So how good he can be, we're putting him in a role that allows him to do a lot of things for us. And so he could impact the game because we're going to feature him in a lot of different roles. And today, you know, you're right on. I mean, he played off the hash on a vertical release by the tight end. He came down as a spin safety on a bubble throw, and then he was in our speed package as a rusher. So that's the way he can impact us.
Brian, following up on Corey Robinson, sorry. Has he indicated to you or anybody that pending the result of his evaluation that he would consider not coming back to the football team?
I think you have these evaluations, and I think his family will be involved in it, so you can make a great decision on where you want to go. But he hasn't alluded to, you know, one way or the other. I think he's doing this because he certainly cares about playing football. If he didn't, he probably wouldn't go through this evaluation. He would just say, I'm done. So clearly he feels as though football is important, and he wants to, you know, get, you know, obviously the kind of medical expertise necessary to make an informed decision. So, you know, we're supportive, and, you know, I think Corey's very thoughtful kid. His dad's going to be part of the process, then his family's going to be there with him too, and I think that's great for him.
Coach, what's your take on the new recruiting rules that came out yesterday, particularly smaller schools not being able to work your camps now, and then the new texting rules and things like that?
Well, are you referring to the satellite camps?
No, like Miami, Ohio, not being able to maybe work your camp now.
Yeah. Well, the rules that I'm clear on are the satellite camps in terms of, now all of this obviously has got to go to the executive committee for final resolution, right? But in terms of camps themselves, you know, high school coaches can still work your camps. I'm under the belief that that can happen. You could still have your staff on your campus working, which we've always had our staff be the prime movers in our camps. So from my perspective, you know, we've had kids from all over the country come to Notre Dame and have given them great opportunities to be here, from Hawaii to Alaska. And we'll continue to do that. We think it's part of our service here at Notre Dame to offer those camps. And we have outstanding high school coaches that work here, and my staff. And we'll continue to provide that to the young student athletes that want to be involved in football. So I don't see it impacting what we've done and how our business, it would not change our business plan and how we operate on a day-to-day basis.
And then the communication your coaches are now going to be able to have with prospects. What's your take on that? Do you think it's good for recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only concern, and again, I haven't gone through it item by item. We're going to have a meeting on Monday with our compliance people. You know, we feel like, you know, the correspondence is one that if it can be blocked by the student athlete, we've always preferred that instead of the inability to block that communication, because you can be inundated, and if you don't want to hear from somebody, Twitter's a great example of being able to block off correspondence if you don't want it, and email sometimes becomes a little bit more difficult. So as I get more informed on that legislation, I'll probably have a better response, but we were pretty good with where the communication was at this point, and I'll see after I read that in more depth before I give you a final answer.